Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover Warren 20 here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And it's for another horror movie review, actually. This horror movie is going to be for none other than one of the films I unboxed this weekend. Last weekend, I mean. And that was, of course, for Pumpkinhead. Those of you who don't know, yes, I got the Steelbook this weekend from Scream Factory. And it was like new, like high def mastered, and it was a good little 4K master of the film. So you can like kind of see a better view of the films, really. And this, to me, would have to actually be the most underrated horror movie of all time. Because, like, I'm going to get to why it is in a little bit, because, well, the reason why I say that because this film doesn't really get talked about much among horror fans. I mean, it has a cult fan base, but not a lot of horror fans really talk about this movie. Really, when they think of slasher killers and names of like Jason, Freddy, or Michael, Pumpkinhead doesn't really get mentioned a lot. Well, it kind of makes sense, I guess. I mean, it wasn't really profitable at the box office when it came out. Nobody even knew about it when it came out either, and it didn't really get a wide release when it came out in 1989, so it kind of disappeared quick by then. But then it kind of started to slowly grow a cult fan base, and it actually did gain 3 direct-to-DVD sequels, which were all garbage. Especially Pumpkinhead 2 Blood Wings, probably being the worst of the 3 by far. That's all I'm going to say about those films. However, this one's probably the best one. Probably the only good one, really. The only one I really like. But anyway, let's get on with this review. So, this film is... Hold on, okay. So, what is this movie about? Well, when a group of teenagers inadvertently kill his only son, Ed Harley, played by Lance Henriksen from Aliens, seeks the power of a backwoods witch to bring the child back to life. But instead of doing that, she instead invokes this demon named Pumpkinhead, who looks kind of like a xenomorph, really. Like a rejected alien-like xenomorph. Or if that's kind of currently being designed, really. He doesn't really have a pumpkin for a head. I kind of wish he had, like... I kind of wish she were more like this demonic scarecrow with an actual jack-o'-lantern for a head, since then it would kind of make more sense to call him Pumpkinhead that way, but in the end, it is what it is. A monstrously claw demon, which, once reborn, answers only to Ed's bloodlust. But as the creature wreaks its slow, unspeakable torture on the teens, Ed confronts a horrifying secret about his connection to the beast, and realizes that he must find a way to stop its deadly mission before it becomes one with the creature forever. A terrifying parable of revenge and possession. And Pumpkinhead, this movie also stars Jeff East from Deadly Blessing, Joel Hoffman from Slumber Party Massacre 2, and Kara Remsen from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. So kind of a few horror icons in this. Yeah. That's pretty much what the movie's about. So, I gotta say, watching the film, I actually really love it for what it is. I consider it a perfect turn-off-your-brain horror film that's not really trying to be a masterpiece, just kind of like a typical slasher flick. Kind of like what Hatchet was in the 2000s. This is pretty much that. Kind of like and similar in tone to that, except less gory, really. I mean, there's still gore in the movie, except not like Hatchet levels of gore, really, or Dead Alive levels of gore. Anyway, what I really liked about this movie was the story. Like I said, it's about the 6 teenagers who go into cabin for arrest, where they stop at the grocery store. That's run by a guy named Ed Harley and his young son. And when Ed went out and did some business, the teenagers ran over Ed's little boy with a motorbike. Ed's son dies, and Ed decides to call Demon Pumpkinhead to destroy the teenagers who accidentally kill his son, but then slowly realizes his mistake and tries to stop the demon. Very excellent story in my opinion, and not one stupid thing happens in it, but what I didn't like is the way Pumpkinhead kills his victims. I mean, there's like one kill I liked, actually. Most of the murders are kind of funny, but the story's really good, original, that not really much against this movie, really. I mean, I think the one kill I thought was good was probably Maggie's death, where Pumpkinhead picks her up and and he reaches his claw out on her head, carves a cross, and she's religious, and he drops her to her death, and she dies. In fact, you kind of see that picture in the thumbnail because it's a pretty iconic shot for when people think of the film. The movie was made in like 1989 by United Artists, but it didn't really get, but then again didn't really get much of a wide release because United Artists was kind of busy promoting Child's Play at the time and thought that was a much more promotable horror film than this. Right. And another thing great about Pumpkinhead, there's no teenage sex, no stupid teenager talks, and everything happens quickly. Everyone dies in very little time. Like, the whole movie's like pretty short, like only about 86 minutes long. And no one can destroy Pumpkinhead at all. Pumpkinhead can never be destroyed. Once he's summoned, there's no escaping him. That's what I liked about the character of Pumpkinhead, because pretty much he's this immortal demon. He can never be stopped unless the person that summoned him dies. The only way to stop Pumpkinhead's rampage is just basically like that. Pumpkinhead's like right away for every horror fan and for all today's horror directors. Like though in essence it is, although another one of the bad qualities that kind of really just a creature on the loose killing the teens film again. So a stalk and slash piece if you just more like Friday the 13th toned really, but it's more appealing. Pumpkinhead's actually more appealing than most of its ilk. It's this old-fashioned movie, rich in atmosphere, setting a more realistic tale that's steeped in real folklore and horror legend. It's also propelled forward by a great performance of Lance Henriksen and especially special effects guru Stan Winston, who's a special effects guru, directs very assertively with a strong visual sense and knowing that as this movie shifts to the inevitable kill after kill sequence, like that he actually developed his protagonist first. It's during the first half where Pumpkinhead earned in stripes as Winston takes time to fully form the relationship between Ed and his son. It's very believable. So when the tragedy happens, every reaction's pretty understandable. But us as a viewer, you pretty much feel vindictive, such as the way Henriksen has let us feel for his character. And then once the creature makes its appearance, that doesn't really happen until the second half, and that's when the blood starts to happen. Most of the time it does kind of get let down by its relatively low budget and the fact that Winston has nowhere to go other than formula. You've sort of the usual array of cocky, bickering shriekers, though in fairness, a couple of the girls are at least scripted as being intelligent and capable of reasoning, unlike in most other slasher movies where they're just kill victims. And thankfully, amongst the carnage, is Henriksen peeling off another emotional layer as he starts to get conflicted about what he has done to, and so all in all, just in the end, Pumpkinhead is a great slasher movie of a demon that is summoned by someone to revenge the death of another person. It's interesting to know that the boys accidentally killed. Like I said, it's interesting to note that the boys accidentally killed and 5 teenagers try to do the right thing. They actually act realistic in a situation. They don't just ignore it like it doesn't mean like everything's fine and just leave. They actually feel horrified at what they had done, and they do try to help. They do try to help Ed's son, but unfortunately he died. But unfortunately, it's kind of too late for him, and sadly, by the time that part happens. But the question is not to be fair or not. Ed's kind of just blinded by his feeling of revenge, and only after calming down, he unsuccessfully tries to call off the deal, but it's too late. So this horror film has a pretty good message about revenge can be kind of dangerous in the end, and you'll never know what you may have caused until it's too late. So, all in all, that's why I think Pumpkinhead is the #1 underrated horror movie of all time, and if you're a slasher fan, and a fan of like demon films, I'd give this movie a watch. Avoid the sequels like the plague, only just watch this one. This is kind of the only good one, really. There was supposed to be, in 2017, they did announce they were going to make a remake with Peter Block producing it, aka Peter Block, the guy who executive produced Saw, Crank, Rambo, Devil's Rejects, that guy. And of course produced and even produced the Adam Green movie Frozen. No, not the Disney shit, I mean the Chairlift movie again, guys. But it hasn't even been, nothing's really been announced of it since then. And to be honest, now I kind of hope it doesn't happen, especially because if they did remake this, I bet Blumhouse would probably lay their grummy hands on it and ruin it. And probably make it some stupid comedy film. I mean, Blumhouse is remaking The Thing, which sounds like a dumbass idea. Great. Can't wait for Blumhouse to wreck The Thing next, like they wrecked Black Christmas. But anyway, that's it for my review of Pumpkinhead, and here's how I would rank it. I am going to give Pumpkinhead a 7 out of 10. And there we go. And that's my review for 1988's Pumpkinhead. So, I have no idea what the next review will be, but we will have to see. But until then, that'll be the first video. Thank y'all for watching. And if you like this and want to see more, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.